Okay, so now we know. I wanted to start just by having the folks in the room with me today introduce themselves. These are members of our AWARE ISF leadership team. And then once we've kind of wrapped up where we are, we'd love to hear from you all on the phone, where you're calling in from, who you are, and where you are in the teaming process, if you're even there yet. So again, I'm Catherine Tillett. I direct our statewide AWARE initiative, and I'll just leave it at that since we have a lot of people.
I'm Karen Bush, and I'm the state coordinator for youth mental health first aid training.
Megan Martin with Avery from the University of Louisville.
Good morning, Lisa Lowe, PBIS consultant with GREC, Green River Regional Educational Cooperative.
Kathy Mesa, behavior consultant with GREC.
Diane Murray-Taylor with the Department for Behavioral Health Development and Intellectual Disability.
Libby Wachtel, working with Rich on the evaluation.
Doug Roberts, program consultant here at KDE.
Joe Craven with KFIT.
Could you all hear that part? Everybody else in the room besides me? Because I'm sitting near a microphone and not everyone is. I know you're probably all on mute. So just to quickly clarify, that's Doug Roberts at KDE and Joe Craven from Kentucky Center for Instructional Discipline, and Lisa Logue and Kathy Mayfield from GREC, Diane Gruenkid from Department of Behavioral Health, and Libby Wachtel from Reach Evaluation. Okay, thank you. And those of you on the phone, let's try unmuting. Oh boy, that's going to be fun. I'll just go down the list because I have some of your names. If you registered to join, if you're joined by computer, I kind of know who you are. So I see that Anne is on the line with us. Oh, I'm not hearing from anybody.
This is Tracy Francis. I can hear you.
Okay, great. So, well, then this part is a little tricky. Tracy, do you want to introduce where you're calling from? And
yes, Woodford County.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And who else is on the call?
Catherine, this is Jamie Like. I can hear you.
That's great. Hi, Jamie. The district.
Hey, how are you?
And you're
Catherine.
calling from Henderson County?
Yes.
Yep.
Calling from Henderson County.
Thank you so much.
And we have been working on interconnected systems framework for a while now, and I'm very interested to hear what you all have to say today that can assist us in what we're trying to do in Henderson.
Great. I'm happy you could make time to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who else has called in?
This is Stacy Lindsay from Warren County in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Hey, Stacy.
This is Chris Witzel. I'm calling in from Somerset with the Adonta Group, and I've worked with Pulaski and Woodford counties.
Okay, great. Great to have you here, Chris. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Patty Whitney from Avery.
Hi, Patty. Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you have other folks?
This is Ann. I'm here. I had to call in. I don't have a microphone.
Hi, Ann. I tried, last time we did this, I could see what people wrote in the chat box, but you all couldn't. I think I've fixed that for this round, so hopefully if you're logged in on the computer, you can see what people write. Let me know if that's not the case. I understand. Okay, thank you. Where is she from?
She's from KFIT.
Okay, Lee Brown from KFIT. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Catherine. Christy Bryce here from Warren County.
Hey, Christy. Good morning.
Morning.
And I see Leah. Are you on? Might not have a microphone either. Karen, is that Bullitt County? Yeah. So we might be enjoying the presence of Leah Riggs from Bullitt County. I'm not quite sure, but she might have stepped away for a minute. Okay, so I think that might be our group for this morning. If you haven't recognized yourself, can please do at least write your name in the chat box, and I'll make sure we all know that you're here, so that as we continue down this road as a group, we know who to reach out to when we have questions and such. And with that, I will hand things over to Megan.
Good morning. This is Megan Martin. I'm glad everyone is joining us on the call, and I'm excited that we have several members of the call who have participated in teaming in districts across the state. So please feel free to share as we go throughout the call anything that you feel like is important. We do have a PowerPoint that's uploaded into ReadyTalk. We're not going to go solely through that, but that's just kind of for reference. So please feel free to ask questions throughout the call as well based upon that. We're going to kind of start with district team representation, thinking about district stakeholders. And I know Tracy from Woodford is with us today, and that's one of the districts that I have been coaching. And so I think that that's a prime example of building your team as you continue to build your ISF framework. So we started with a team initially about 8 months ago, and we are continually building upon that team as we go. Even last month in the meeting, we determined that there was an additional community member that we needed to add. So this is not just a one meeting, we decide who's on the team and we move forward. This team may be changing and evolving as you work through the process with your district or your school. So we're going to start with thinking about the stakeholders. So we really want to think about who has the authority to make decisions at the district and school level. And I think that's where we have to begin with this because lots of us have great plans, but until we have the people who have the authority to make those decisions and make things happen at the table, oftentimes those plans are not followed through with. Then I think we also have to think about who's currently providing mental health services within our district or our building. So depending upon where you are across the state, that varies greatly, and Diane can speak to this if she would like to. I know Chris is with us on the call as well. He works with Pulaski County, and I believe, Chris, they have 32 service providers within that district. Is that correct at this time?
There's a lot.
So thinking
yes,
about who's providing those mental health services to your students in your district and inside your buildings is a really important component of the team and who needs to be present at the table. I work a lot with some districts in eastern Kentucky as well, and we're a little more limited in that area as to who is able to provide those services and what the options are for students and families and districts. And then also thinking about community liaisons for mental health. Who in the district is kind of your gatekeeper, your contact person for those community agencies, or do we have one? We have begun working with lots of districts that when we kind of bring that topic up, they say, well, it's kind of just somebody different in each building. It's not a specified role. So talking about who is that person or who are those people in our district, depending upon the size of the district. What does the mental health referral pathway look like currently in our district, and is that working? Also thinking about attendance, the health gatekeeper, so that may be family resource, nurse. Some districts have health coordinators. A lot of ours that are smaller do not, and wraparound services. Also thinking about, do we have a juvenile justice liaison? And all of these are kind of questions that a core team needs to be thinking about prior to building your ISF team. Thinking about the stakeholders, and then again, who's making decisions. So when we go to the next slide, Catherine, if you want to move on, this is kind of just a sample representation of what that district teaming may begin to look like. And in some of our districts, I will share with you that we have started with a core team, which is primarily our MTSS team. So when we think about our MTSS team, we have representation from the district level as well as from schools. for academic and behavioral response to intervention, RTI, mental health, all of those items that fall under that MTSS umbrella. That kind of has been where we have started in a lot of our districts with core teams, and then that team has determined the availability in that community and in that district of who those community stakeholders are and who they would like to bring in and join their team. So when we think about that, the next slide just has kind of a sample of what that team could possibly look like. So we have superintendent and assistant superintendent, and then we have our MTSS and PBIS coordinators, your DPP, school psychologists, school counselors, or school social workers, and again, that varies greatly across the state depending upon where you are. Directors of special education, community outreach directors or director of nurses, family resource director, your community mental health providers, if you have those available that are already working within your district, as well as your principals and administrators. So at the district level, we want to make sure that we have district buy-in, but we also have to have buy-in from our school administrators in order for the system to work effectively within all of our schools. So thinking about that, that's just kind of some samples that we have utilized. Then once we establish that core team, typically within our districts, we then have had that core team begin thinking about those community partners and who they would like to bring in. And so I'm going to have Tracy share in just a few minutes, as well as Chris, some of the items that we have talked about within Woodford County. And then I know we also have several people from Warren County. So Christy, if you all have anything that you all would like to share about your teaming, please feel free to do so. But I know that we've talked a lot in Woodford about what data we need and then who is able to bring that data to the table and who we would like to be a part of that team. So some of the people that we have begun to include are our school resource officers, and we had to get some permission from the local law enforcement agencies. And again, depending upon where you are, it may be your county sheriff's department, it may be a city police department, or it may be some other entity that's providing your school resource officers. We've talked a lot in my districts about health departments and what they can bring to the table, as well as our 4-H and extension offices across the state. University partnerships, even in our rural areas, there are lots of smaller universities that are willing to partner with our districts to provide some type of support and bring something to the table as far as data, as well as support in our districts. The hospital or health partnerships, DCBS, your community agency workers, so your court-designated workers, oftentimes those have a representative that is very willing to come to the table to work on preventative practices, because they really would love to reduce those numbers in that juvenile justice system. And then, of course, the last thing is our community mental health providers. So Tracy and Chris, do you all have anything that you all would like to share about teaming in Woodford and kind of how that process has evolved over the past 8 months?
Sure. So we started with a core team looking at our MTSS structure and our MTSS core team. And from there we determined who we thought would be, who could bring data to a meeting through the ISF committee. And so we looked at those core teams and who we have already, who is in our schools that we can utilize that can bring this data to the table. So we started our district MTSS coordinator, and from there we have a school nurse, a district-wide school nurse. We brought her to this table. We have a school-wide social worker. We brought her to the table. We chose a school psychologist that does secondary and the elementary levels, so that gave that wide perspective. We wanted an administrator on the team that had a view of different age ranges and grades that had served in various roles, so we brought her to the table. We chose an academic dean for that role, and we brought one of our school counselors to the table, and then a parent as well, along with our with Megan. She comes and guides us through there, and then Chris comes, and he's part of that team. From that team, we met. We did an introduction letter, brought everyone to the table, and explained, and to the best of our ability, what ISF is. and started building the knowledge level and asking those questions. Okay, what can you bring to the table? What do we need? And from there, we scheduled some other meetings, and it's led us to our last meeting. Megan, Chris, I think we've had like 3 or 4 meetings. Is it 4 maybe at this point?
That sounds right, yeah.
And through those meetings, we've added other members from the community because that's our core people in our schools that touch all kinds of different areas within our district, but they also have community connections and partnerships. For instance, our district social worker, she works closely with the DJJ area. She works closely with our director or Child and Family Services, and we also have, I forgot to say that, we put in initially the director of the health department and Child and Family Services onto our team. And then from there, we have decided that we need other partners such as an SRO representative that we have hired those positions here, and they're called SLOs, not SROs. We've had to rename the job description, but we have that connection now and with the group. And from there, we also determined that we wanted to add someone from our extension office to give us some resources for our community and what's out there. And then from there, we also determined that we needed some more information and data, because the main thing about all of the people sitting on the committee is that they have a piece of data that we need to make informed decisions about mental health needs within our district. So, for instance, our district social worker can tell us the data front for the DJJ. She can work with the social services and tell us how many home placements there have been. Our counselors can tell us how many individual groups they're running, how many individual sessions they're running or groups they're running, what are the needs of those groups, what's out there as far as needs for mentor meals, for example. And we needed some more information about residential placement and then therapeutic foster care placement, and where would we get those that data, as well as our home and hospital data. So who's going to be the person that represents that data? That's kind of in a gist. Megan, is there anything else you would like me to kind of go into with that?
No, I think that it's just important that we all understand that this team is evolving. And so as we dig deeper into the data, we may determine that we need an additional data source. And when we do that, we really have to look at who in the community is able to provide that data and how can we partner with them and make them a team member in partnership with the school district. And I know that we have Warren on the call as well. Do we have any districts on the call who have not yet established a leadership team for ISF? I feel like our districts that we have are pretty versed in teaming, it sounds like, based on who we have on the call.
Hey, Megan, I'm not Warren, but one other thought I had on the resource mapping that Tracy was sharing, we also, I think, decided to look closer at who some of the other mental health providers in the community were, and in particular being able to engage the prevention services with the local community mental health center, because that's another source of really good data. That's a big part of what they do, and so how we can further inform the data through engaging the prevention services with the local community mental health center. Thought I'd throw that out there too.
Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
From Warren County's perspective, I would just add that we still are in the early stages and have a lot of area for growth. One additional member to the team that I think can be beneficial is we contacted the local imam from our Muslim community to bridge. We have a very diverse population, so we felt this would help bridge a community leader in some of our minority communities to this team.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from Warren that you all would like to share about your all's teaming journey?
I would love to ask Sarah Baker. Sarah, if you're available, I believe she's on the call. I would like to brag specifically on Bristow because they probably made the most gains in this area. So, Sarah, if you could speak a little bit to how Bristow has brought some of the community resources to the team, that would be great.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. So we had our first community leaders meeting back this summer in July, where we brought several of our mental health providers that we see a lot at our school into Bristow and kind of told them, okay, here is the plan. You know, this is what we want to do. We talked about how we wanted to get them in our school more. We emailed out at the beginning a list of all of our activities for the year because we try to plan those out before even school starts, you know, like our reading night and science night and art night and all those different types of things. And we invited them to all those events, and we prefaced that with, you know, you tell us what you want to do. We would love if you wanted to kind of be the first 5 minutes of an activity and say, you know, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm from, you know, Life Skills or whatever, and, you know, this is what I do, and I'll be out here if you guys have any questions or want a resource. We've invited them, you know, just to come to our community bash, which they did. I don't think we've had anybody take us up on that offer yet, except for the community bash. Now, they did come. We had several people come to our community bash. But we've extended that invitation, and we continue to email out before every event, just trying to get them in our school so they're a familiar face for our families. And then also we had kind of our first data share meeting where we invited our community mental health representatives into our school. That's kind of part of our ISF team that we had invited back in July, and we included a parent this time. And we showed the compilation of everything that we've been doing, you know, at our school to, you know, try to make a headway with this. And, you know, shared out our data and just kind of looked from their perspective. And, you know, I really didn't know what to expect when we first started as far as what kind of feedback we were going to get. But our parent actually offered some really good insight on, you know, what she's seeing from a parent end, which kind of helped us be able to streamline our communication and kind of target it a little bit more for parents. So I think that helped as well. Christy, were you wanting me to go into detail about the different things that we're doing here at school, or just kind of keeping more aligned with what we're doing to kind of bridge that gap with our mental health providers?
No, I think the partnership was what was most relevant. And you could specifically mention, isn't BRASS one of the community agencies that you've partnered with? We pretty much tried to hit all of our mental health agencies that we work with directly, but BRASS definitely being one of them. Life Skills. I think the only person that we didn't have that we want to include moving forward is Rivendell, our mental health hospital per se that's here. We just couldn't get that connection established. So we hope moving forward we'll be able to include them as well. And Stacy, if you're on this line as well, I know I'm leaving somebody out. I don't have my list right in front of me. Well, and for those who don't know, BRASS is our Bear River area safe space that's for it houses individuals from domestic violence. So they have a lot of students that will then come to elementary, to their elementary school. So I thought that was a really creative connection to make.
And you know, of course, we in the front office, we know those representatives from BRASS because we deal with them one-on-one, but what it provided was a great opportunity for those people who are on our ISF team, teachers in the building, and of course our community members as well, that don't interact with those representatives from Brass as much, to actually be able to talk to and kind of get to know them. So that was kind of some good networking. That was an unexpected surprise there as well.
We also did, of course, Rivendell, but CCSU, they were invited to our first one, and I don't know if they all attended our second one just because of the constraints on their time. But one other person that we invited that hasn't got to share the data yet was we have Save Our Kids Coalition, and they do a survey with our, I think, 6th grade up students. So that's, we thought, would be valuable data to get, that they do things with drugs and alcohol and mental health and depression and things like that. So we're excited to be able to get some of that data, which is shared with our district, but it has, Eric Gregory is on that, so hopefully we'll be able to get some good data from all that information for our schools.
And Stacy and myself and some of the other members of our team have actually been invited tomorrow to speak at their monthly life skills kind of meeting, where they kind of wanted us to share what we're doing, hopefully to kind of inspire and continue to bridge that gap between, you know, the school and the community and our mental health providers, and hopefully continue the movement on.
We have Kathy Maysell from GREC, and she's going to kind of speak to that REACT partnership.
Yes, so, you know, our REACT has been very involved in this, and they come to speak of it. So we're so excited with Sarah and thinking in the community partnership meeting that they had with Briscoe. I'm like, they were very enlightening, and just hearing some of the partners speak, including parents in the neighborhood. And so our mental health representative was there. So we're excited that they are going to come and speak to REACT about ISS and how this works, because they've heard about it, but they are actually going to finally get to see it in action and see how it's playing out directly within the school. So very exciting.
Great. Does anybody have anything else before we move on? So I think the slide that everyone can see right now out of your slide deck is thinking a little bit more about buy-in from your team members and thinking about what we want. And we know that we all want the same things. Oftentimes we have different pathways that we get there. But when we bring those community partners in, sometimes it's buy-in from the community partner leadership, and sometimes it's buy-in from our district leadership. I was on a call yesterday, and it was a district leadership issue. They were saying we've tried to work with community partners in the past and it hasn't been successful, and so we don't really know what that can look like. And so I know that we have struggled across the state previously with some of those partnerships, but I think we have to keep an open mind and think about what those partnerships could look like to benefit all students sitting in our seats in our classrooms. So thinking about that, we all want the 4 C's. When we think about those 4 C's, that's clarity. That's the clarity of your role and the role of others, consistency in the way that we're working, and expectations of our work, communication between ourselves, key stakeholders, and oftentimes that includes families. Someone, I believe, from Warren County spoke to a parent, was very informative about what things the school or the district could do in order to open that communication and help them as parents, as well as our community partners. And then collaboration. What's the best way that we can all work together to achieve the goal of supporting all students with mental health and whatever their needs are? So I think that we really have to focus and think about all of those things when we think about teaming as well as buy-in.
Megan, this is Catherine. I'd like to interject just a second to point out that Jamie contributed some information in the chat box, and for anyone who can't see it, I'll read it out quickly. She's noted that Henderson County Schools started their collaborative partners group July 2002 to reach out to the community partners, including local mental health providers, CDWs, DJJ, juvenile court, family court, etc., to let them know that they were welcome in our schools to address non-academic issues with students. We meet every other month to talk about programs and services that are available in our community to address the needs of kids and families. On any given day, we likely have 30 partners in our schools providing services. Okay, thank you, Jamie. sharing that with us.
What's our time limit? Okay. Catherine, if you could continue on, go to the slide in your slide deck that says symmetry of process. So one of the things that I think that we as coaches, keep going.
Keep going? Okay. I didn't. Still going. Still going.
Yeah.
Got a lot of good slides.
I think it's the next one. Ta-da! Okay, when you're thinking about the symmetry of process across the state, and this is one thing that our state task group has discussed a lot, as well as worked with our co-ops across the state and the Department of Education on, is thinking about what does that look like, what should it look like, and what would it look like in a perfect world. And so thinking about the state leadership team, I know those of you that are on the call today are very familiar with who the members of that state leadership team are, how you contact them, but we do have lots of districts across the state that are not as well informed as those of you that are on the call today. So making sure that if you're sharing with other districts or other schools within your district who have not piloted yet or have not begun implementing, that they are really clear on that there are state level and regional level coaches available for the interconnected system framework that can coach you through parts of the workbook, as well as the installation guide and teaming and helping you build your teams. So I think that's something that we want to continue to clarify from the co-ops as well as the state level, is that we do have those people across the state that are available for support. We had our original training with Kelly Perales, and how many coaches were trained, Catherine? Do we know a number?
We had about 50 people attending, and I would say roughly half of those were folks in coaching.
So probably 20 to 25 across the state. So if there are questions about who those people are, Catherine has a list of them statewide as well as regional, as to who you could contact if you're a district who is beginning that process. And then we also want to think about that same teaming process should be taking place at the district level, which is kind of what we have focused on and talked about for the past 30 minutes, is what does that district team look like, but then also breaking it down into the school level. And so when we get to the school level, we have to have a district coach or a district ISF expert coaching that school oftentimes through that. And I think that Warren County probably is farther in that process than anyone at this time from my understanding. So I don't know, Christy, if you have anything you'd like to share about how your all's teaming works from the district level to the school level, or what barriers you all have found. But I think that that is really important as we think about implementation and teaming, is that we need to make sure that all of those are in place at all three levels. So anything that anybody wants to share about that, or Tracy. I know in Woodford County, and I'll just speak for Tracy and Chris, we have been solely focused this year one on the district level teams, and then hope to roll out and begin creating school level teams next school year. That was kind of our initial plan.
I would say in Warren County, from the implementation side of things, that a barrier, unfortunately, or would be initiative fatigue. And so we're really trying hard to frame the ISF work under our PBIS initiative. In fact, I often don't even use the ISF like the acronym, because I find that unfortunately, it's somewhat, I get there's some negative connotation from some of our schools, because they feel like this is something new they're having to do. And so instead, I'm trying to just beef up our PBIS work to be more, to be better connected with our mental health system. So I feel like it's just a different means to the same end. And I think from an implementation standpoint, that's the kind of thing that matters. And so we are trying to improve our district team, and we have some conversations going on with schools that are making the baby steps, Bristow being the farthest along. So that would just be one particular. I don't know if anybody else has found a better way around that, but our schools feel, over-surveyed and over-initiative implementation, and so we're having to walk carefully in making these next steps.
I would agree with that here in Woodford County. In rolling just the first portion out, we have realized that terminology and new verbiage can scare people, and it is initiative fatigue. They're worn out with new things. We really focused on through our administrative leadership monthly meetings with our administrative team. This is part of the MCSS, just as you all did, and the PBIS structure. And just like we have the triangle, this is where this falls in your triangle. It's already been there. This is how we are going to pull in those community members. And just like you said, just using the language we are used to using and building from that knowledge base.
So, Chris, this is Joe Craven. That's really good to hear you say that. And so, in fact, in our Tier 2 training now with CBIS, we just have all the ISF stuff embedded in there. And we just roll it out from the ground up, like it's just the way you do. And even in Tier 1 now for the schools that are just joining. But for those that are already doing Tier 1, when we start their Tier 2 training, the ISF is already embedded. So it's like this is just how you do it. So that you don't have to go back and convince them that it's not one more thing. So I love to hear that you're just embedding it and rolling it out like, hey, it's just another piece of PBIS and what you're already doing. So that's a great strategy.
And this is Lisa Lowe from GREC, but I know from Midwest PBIS and Kelly Perales and the leaders of the National ISF team, their kind of overarching idea about teaming is constantly that it's about the function of the team and not what we name it. And so I think that's essential to remember whether we're talking about districts, communities, partnerships, whatever it happens to be. It's identifying the function, the roles, and responsibilities within the team.
Thanks. Excuse me. This is Catherine. I just wanted to thank you both for acknowledging that initiative fatigue is definitely going to be something that we all struggle with through this process, because it is not a simple thing to accomplish, and it does take a long time. And it's hard. There are no great answers for that one either, but I think we just have to expect that to be there and share any successful strategies we have around navigating that. And certainly, framing things, embedding the work in things that you're already doing that are familiar is exactly the right way. And I don't think anybody cares what we call this. The only advantage from our standpoint here, kind of at the state level of using ISF, is that it helps people connect to the national level guidance, since that's where that language originated, and differentiate it from other things that may be going on within the state agency that speak to PBIS that don't include the mental health chunk of things. But that doesn't mean that even when I go out and talk about this with people, I don't try to use the language that is going to scare people the least and that they're most likely to understand. So I appreciate your speaking to that as well.
Well, I think anytime you can look at your school teams around grading your initiatives, right, and what are the common goals of the things that you're doing, and let them see that it's all working toward that sort of common outcome. Eases that anxiety around. I mean, I think we've all been in education long enough to know that, sometimes it's that shiny object, and if you let them know that it's not something new, that it's just a common outcome and a common goal of those people are working towards it, that's going to ease that anxiety a little bit.
Okay, the only other thing I wanted to share kind of that I'm getting lots of questions from districts that we're working with statewide about this team at the district level and how often that team needs to be meeting and what that schedule should look like. So again, it's going to vary depending upon where you are and how many members you have up on your team. In some of our districts, they have chosen to have a standing monthly meeting where they will continue to work on an action plan and go through some of the resource mapping and continue to work through the ISF guidebook or the workbook. And then in some of our districts, they have chosen to meet quarterly. So that's 4 times a year, and then maybe some trainings provided in the summer. And so that really depends upon where you are and what works best for your district. There is no standard as far as how often that you have to meet, the length of those meetings, and that type of thing. I just kind of wanted to share that because I know I'm getting lots of questions from my districts and my schools. Another meeting, when does that take place? How often do we have to meet? So I know Woodford, we have met, we're going to, I think, meet 5 times this school year, so it was almost quarterly, but we also have some subcommittees that have been working within the district throughout the year as well that then are reporting back to the larger ISF team at the district level. So I'm not sure what everyone else's schedules look like for the districts that you're coaching, but that's just something I wanted to touch on with this teaming piece because I'm getting lots of questions about that. Anybody else? And for that quarter, you're all districts doing meetings. Are they monthly or quarterly or?
Warren County is built into their district PBIS meetings
Monthly.
So without naming them, and so they actually have 2 official big meetings, a fall and a spring meeting that incorporate all the community members and now the new members.
And then started having the ISF team
within their private school.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have schedules for meetings that you'd like to share? I feel like we have lots of experts on the call that are already doing lots of great work in our districts and across the state. So we did want to leave some time for questions about teaming, but I don't know that we have anyone that's brand new to teaming on the call, but I think we can open it up for questions. Catherine, are you okay to do that at this time? So questions about teaming or things that you may want to ask anyone sitting at the table today.
I have a question from Warren County. I would say that I'm curious to hear what other districts, how they have designed the team meeting in a way when you have that many stakeholders at the table to be a productive meeting in which people are contributing and it's purposeful and efficient and accomplishes goals. You know, what is happening at those meetings where we all leave with a sense of this was a meaningful use of our time. I would love to hear some input about that because when I think about meeting more frequently, that's a lot of resources that you're pulling away from other roles that they serve and other time that's spent doing many other things. So I would want that time to be so powerful that it's worth me calling that meeting. So I'd love to hear more about how people run their meetings and what kind of goals they accomplish.
Megan, and I will just speak to the districts that I'm coaching with ISF, and so we have an annual plan that we kind of developed with the district leadership in the beginning, and then at each meeting we have an agenda. We have a set amount of time, and in the beginning of the agenda we go over our goals, our annual goals, what we would like to accomplish in that school year, and then we go over our short-term goals, what we're accomplishing during that meeting. Each meeting is very intentional on what we are focused on and working on, and that agenda really should be going out to your community partners ahead of time, so if it's something that they don't feel like they can contribute to or don't need to be a part of, that they're aware of that before they arrive at the meeting. And then we stay very focused on that task and topic, and when our time is over, our time is over, and if we have not completed that task, then we continue it on or we finish it at the district level. So that's one thing that I know that we've been doing in some of our districts.
And Megan, I could chime in on the effectiveness of that. I have the unique position to sit across 2 different districts, and the common features of, and the similar meeting experience is the same in Pulaski. You know, you get access to data, some of the results of the screening, tools that the Pulaski School has used, it helps me as a community mental health center administrator then be able to go back, having established these key contacts, understand the plan, and then it really has helped me talk to our own agency's leaders about how we can structure the workforce that we do have. Workforce is a huge challenge for us right now, but be able to make the best use of who we do have by understanding that annual plan, by being able to understand some of the school's biggest issues and how the PBIS works. So I have found working across both districts with a similar kind of approach that you described is super helpful as a community mental health center representative. I don't know if that helps or not.
It does. Thank you, Chris.
This is Sarah Baker from Warren County. I would be just curious if it was possible to even look at some of your district agendas to kind of. I know we have our workbook that we can kind of look through, but just kind of see, get a hands-on of what your agenda looks like and how you organize them. Because I think I understand what Ms. Bryce was saying, just because I know the organization of our meeting. I'd be curious if that was possible to look at some of the different district communities' agendas.
You okay with sharing those agendas from some of our bigger meetings?
I'm okay with sharing from Woodford County. I think the most important part of the agenda is your action items. So when you come into the meeting, you have those follow-up action items, and then at the end of the meeting, you have to-do action items. And that's the two most important areas for me to make sure that I know everyone knows what they're doing, and then we're able to bring that information back to the table, discuss it, figure out what to do with it, and then move on to our next topic. Because the action items is really sometimes where you fall through the cracks because we are all very busy people, and making sure we are meeting that need.
And if that would be possible, I would love to be able to look at different districts' action items and kind of compare those to the direction that we are moving, and say maybe we need to structure our meetings in this way. And I totally, like I said, I totally kind of understand where Ms. Bryce is coming from, just because I know how our committee is set up. But I would, if there are districts out there that would be willing to share some of their agendas, I would love to see those, just to be able to kind of get my mind wrapped around our action items as we move forward.
And some of those to Catherine, and she can share some of those that may be helpful to other districts. Do we
have a folder for that in the community practice?
We can certainly make one. The other thing that I can do, I can put them both places. So I can put them in the Community of Practice Google Drive, and also I can attach them to this meeting archive. So when I'm able to send out the link of the recording and all of that and slides, then I can put that with it.
I think that would be awesome, just so we can, just continue to structure our meetings in the most effective way.
Yeah. Thank you for being willing to share.
Any other questions?
Nothing? Okay, then I will let everybody know that our next Community of Practice call will be on Friday, March 15th, 9:30 to 10:30, just like this one. And then the final one for the school year anyway, I can't remember if we're going to try to do something across the summer or not. I know people have other plans, is May 14th, again, 9:30 to 10:30. So March 15th and May 14th time. I have in my notes that I can see at the moment that our May meeting will be talking about different sources for data, but I don't remember what our March meeting will cover. Resource mapping. Oh, yes, I'm excited about that one. Great. Okay, so we have resource mapping in March, data in May, and we'd love for you all to come back and join us if you run into folks who you think would be interested, feel free to have them connect with me. I can send them the links for this, or you can forward them the links for these calls, and anyone is welcome. All right, well, thank you very much for your time today, and I hope you have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.